So Doc, you know, I go on these group rides and these guys have such giant batteries, and you know, I feel so inadequate when I'm riding with them because I have such horrible range anxiety when it comes to this, you know? So I don't know what to do. I just, you know, I have to charge constantly, and these guys just get to go for miles and miles and miles and miles. Well, you know, what I see here is that you need to go ahead and be prescribed this. What's this? This is the Mboards Endurance. It has the biggest battery ever. Whoa. You'll go for miles! And I'm a doctor. I should know.
Wow!
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you're new here, my name is Drew Ilya. I review all things e-skate and enjoy PEV on all scales. Today, I have something that I can't even begin to stress how important this board is to the industry as a whole. It is a huge step forward, and it is the Mboards Endurance. What? It just looks so good. Just looks so good. It's dirty. Sorry, it's dirty. We've been testing it pretty hard, but it's so good. It's so good. And here, let me explain why. So let me paint a picture for you for my PEV journey really quickly. I started out on one wheel. This is back in 2020 when the pandemic hit. Everyone was locked up. I was looking for some excuse to go outside, and I saw someone riding an electric one wheel. I went ahead and bought the Pine, the one wheel Pine. It was $950 at the time. So $950 got me 6 miles of range on an electric one wheel. That is what I thought was great. I was like, hey, 6 miles of range, where am I going? I don't need that much range. You know, top speed was like 14 or 15 miles per hour. So I thought, awesome, great job. Then all of a sudden, I hopped on a $300 electric hub board that got 22 miles per hour and had like 11 miles of range, and it was $300.
I was like, I screwed up.
After that, jumped into the e-skate world, and from there just took off. My one thing with me is like, power is great. Power is awesome. You know, being able to go as fast as you possibly want, that's a great thing. For me, it's range. I don't want to be stranded somewhere. I don't want to be left somewhere. So when I started getting into it, the 12S4P, those things were like incredible. You're like, oh my God, that's so much range. 25 miles of range on AT tires, you know, on 90mm street wheels, you were getting like 30 plus miles of range. I couldn't believe it. Now, this board came along and I was getting 50 miles, 47.9 to be precise, miles on AT tires, on 175mm tires. That is bonkers, bonkers, nuts. I can't stress how much of an importance that is when it comes to e-skate world, is that 47 miles. Go ahead, wherever you're doing, pause the video, pull up Google Maps, and look at a 50-mile radius of where you are right now. See how far of a distance that is. That's how far you can travel on this board, which is just mind-blowing to me. Let me go ahead and break down the board as a whole, and we'll talk about each individual component and why this board is probably the next board that you should be buying. So let's start off with the deck. Forged carbon fiber deck coming in 2 different styles. A matte finish, which I think is absolutely fantastic. It can't stress enough, the look of this is, it's really, really nice look, because a lot of the newer forged carbon fibers that were coming out are these glossy finish, which they do offer that as well too, and those are great. This one, I feel like it just is a satin finish, and it's hard to get on film, but it is definitely, out of the 2, my favorite option. So the deck is 39.75 inches long by 10 inches wide. When you first look at it, it's actually a very kind of shorter, narrower looking board comparatively to other ones that I've seen before. Very, very subtle drop down with an almost flat like standing platform on there. And initially when I stepped on it, it felt different to me. And the reason why is because a lot of the boards I ride have these like slightly W concave to them, a little bit flares on either end. But as soon as someone said, oh bro, this feels like our surfboards, it like clicked for me. Like instantly I was like, oh, you're 100% right. It's literally like riding my surfboards, which actually have the opposite of the concave. It's the convex style situation. This board doesn't have a convex, but they're flatter in the middle than it would be. That instantly clicked for me, and I would say that that's one of the features that I actually started loving about it, is that it was this really nice flat board with this really nice like pocket for your back foot here and a pocket for your front foot. It was a perfect amount of stance for me to be able to plant my feet, know where they were at any given time, and to basically like hunker down when I wanted to gun it and fly forward, and then also get some really nice deep carved turns with it. The deck itself, absolutely fantastic. I really can't stress enough how incredible this is looking, and the ride feel of it, the comfort feel of it is great. It is a very flat deck, so if you are used to something that does have a little bit more concave to it, just know that when you're stepping on it, it's going to be a little bit of like you're riding your regular old school skateboards, which again, positive in my point. The total weight is also 35 pounds. So they're saying it's actually a little bit heavier than what the Meepo Hurricane originally was coming out as. I don't notice it. I mean, it's definitely got some heft to it, but I think it's just such a sleek, gorgeous package that everything's inside there. It's just mind-blowing that they fit a 12S 8P configuration inside this thing with the Storm Core, with the receiver. Everything inside there is buttoned up beautifully. And all I can say is that it didn't feel heavy to me, and everything that was inside of there looked perfect. Like, it really is a very gorgeous, sleek package. I'm gonna keep saying that over again, is that... All right, last screw out here. Let's go ahead and take a look on the inside of this thing and see what it looks like. To whoever finds this note, help! I'm trapped in Vegas building kick-ass boards. Send fellow shredders to Eastgate Con. What? Joking, that was me. I wrote the note to myself. This looks great. This battery is beautiful. It's so big, but yet I feel like there's still so much more space. I feel like you can still kind of rearrange stuff maybe and fit. You know, when I first went on a group ride with it, people were like, oh, Mboards Endurance, I saw about that. I'm like, yeah, 12S 8P inside of here. And they were like, what? And it's the same size as the Hadean. It's the same size as the Meepo. You know, it's actually smaller in certain situations. Like I said, it's got like a little bit of a belly on there, but it fits and looks perfectly. I can't stress that enough, that it's like not going to be as encompassing as you would find like on any other board that you would like, these bigger boards. I think it's a perfect size for what it is. Let's get on to the trucks here, the trucks and the wheel options. So the trucks are double kingpin trucks with the Riptide custom bushings inside there. That was a huge step forward, I would say, and I believe that the team agrees there as well. Riptide bushings make the world of difference. Like, if you pick up any board off the shelf and you find that you don't like the ride quality, maybe it's, you know, something like that, and people start changing wheel options, that's an option, definitely. But realistically, changing your bushing, like stiffness, the durometer of the bushing, also the different shapes from cone to barrel, a multitude of different things that you should choose when you're looking at Riptide bushings or any other bushing setup in that sense. And they nailed it when it came to this. The stability at high speeds, along with the carvability at low speeds, I'm a huge fan of it. I don't know why people kind of hate on double kingpins recently. I think it's it's one of those things where I come from a snowboarding, surfing background. I love skateboarding. I always used to rock double kingpin trucks on my longboards, my regular longboards. So for me, when hopping on this, it felt natural. And I think the Riptides there gave you the stability you need at high speeds. I hit 37 miles per hour at top speed with this thing. No speed wobbles, no issues whatsoever in that sense. And it's definitely one of those things I truly do love. I think that they nailed it when they chose the double kingpin setup, and that they also have the Riptide bushings inside there as well too. The good thing about this board is that this board is basically a DIY that's built for you. You know, what I mean by that is that if you went out and you wanted to build this board, you could absolutely do that. All of the components that are inside of here are DIY parts. None of them are manufactured directly from Mboards, except for the batteries. They do build those in-house, but Storm Core, ESC, you know, the receiver could be a Hoyt puck if you wanted to, it could be a VX4, it could be anything you want, flip sky situation. You can choose all of that and be able to customize it. So, you know, when you get your board and there's something down the road that you're like, oh, the new upgrade came out, I wanted to upgrade to these, totally doable on this board. And that's something that I think that is absolutely essential for someone that is looking for a upgradability down the road. Totally great option in that sense. So while we're on the trucks here as well, let's talk about the motors. 63, 68, 190 kV motors. These things are screaming. Let me tell you the amount of power these things put out. Geared properly, these things were hitting 37 miles an hour, and I think that's nuts. With the 58T 175 millimeter tires, I hit a top speed of 37 miles per hour, which is mind-blowing. And I did that in a straightaway coming out of a park on a group ride. This thing was so much fun being able to rip around this thing. And the ability of the power and everything like that is it's there. You don't have to worry about the stress of power thing. I obviously tested them in cooler weather for me, so it necessarily wasn't heating up per se, but like on hotter days, I know the guys out in Vegas, they definitely test this thing in way hotter weather than me. And they weren't having any overheating issues or anything like that. So I can definitely say that these motors, plenty of power to get you where you're going at the speed you're going at. I constantly was riding around the 25 to 30 miles an hour in this thing with no hesitation. The motors make this really nice audible, turbo spooling noise. Actually, one of the guys said it in the group ride. He was like, yo, that thing sounds like a jet fighter. I agree. It's definitely one of those things where audibly speaking.
That thing sounds like it's a spaceship. It is a spaceship.
You hear this thing coming, and I love it. I think. Let's talk about the Vesque system and the Stormcore 60D Plus. What Vesque basically allows you to do is that it lets you go into there with the phone app and completely customize the different outputs as far as amperage to the motors, the power output, your brake level. It gives you an incredible amount of customization, almost too much to someone that doesn't know necessarily what they're doing, i.e. me. I had a great customer service experience with Jacob here from the Mboards that they allowed me to basically over the phone, FaceTime, walk me through and break down essentially everything that was going on inside the app there. And I was really more confident in being able to kind of tinker around with it inside there. I didn't really mess with anything, but it was just good to have a walkthrough and show me how to exactly do everything as far as a bench test in there, doing a motor test run on there. They really did have a great customer service. The Vesque system gives you smooth power. So there's 1, 2, and 3 gear options. In the lower gears, you're able to, basically hand it off to someone that's new to the sport and let them get up to speed and power. It gives you some fun comfortability, especially you're kind of riding around a parking lot. Speed mode 2 and 3, I was in 3 pretty much every single time. The high mode is what they call it on theirs. And it allows you to really rip it. And I would say off the line, this thing definitely packs a punch, but once it really gets that mid-range power, so that 15 mile an hour, this thing starts pulling and it does not stop. It does not stop until you get up to like 33, 34, 35 miles an hour. I was backing off on these different videos here, as you can see it here, because I didn't have enough protective equipment on there. I didn't feel safe at those higher speeds. I only had a helmet on, but it definitely can reach up to those speeds and gives out incredible amount of power. I would say that as far as it comes to a DIY situation, this is definitely one of the better options that's available out there for you. All right, let's talk about the big behemoth in the room, the battery. 1,450 watt hours, 12S 8P Molicel P42A configuration. This battery is the end all be all for me. I think that a 12S 8P configuration is overkill at this point. Being able to ride at 220 pounds, fully dressed with gear and everything else on, I'm closer to like 235 probably at that point. So I'm talking about just a massive amount of person being able to ride around in basically 29-degree weather, and we rode for almost 15 miles, and I still had an estimated range of 28 miles left in that degree weather.
Real quick guys, I just want you to see here, I didn't even start with a full charge that day, and I only used 396 watt hours of power. That still gave me another a little over 1,000 watt hours of power to use, and I still had freezing cold weather. This battery is insane.
Guys, I can't stress that enough. That we were getting back from the group ride, and there were other people on different boards that were coming back.
Like, oh, I had 28% battery life left.
And I was like,
Yeah, I got 28 miles left.
And they're like, no, you meant 28%. I said,
No, I literally have 28 miles of battery life left.
after we just rode through freezing cold weather, and I was hitting 37 miles an hour, and we were cruising at like a 22 mile an hour speed range. Like, it was just, it's one of those things where if range anxiety is something that you are worried about, this board will absolutely crush all of your expectations and then some. I can't stress that enough. I've had this thing for a few weeks now. I couldn't even drain it in the time frame that I wanted to. Like, I tried getting out every single day. I was riding around on it almost every single day, putting like 4 or 5 miles on it from like running around errands, 10 miles here, 15 miles there, 20 miles on a long range, and I still was unable to drain this thing. I basically had gave up at 47.9 miles an hour with still 28% battery life left on it. I can't stress that enough that I basically was, because I just wanted to try the other tires on it. I was like, I need to try this with street wheels. I wanted to see the feeling of the street wheels. So I just said, all right, 50 miles of range. I know this thing is gonna hit 50 miles of range. 3+ more miles of this thing is not gonna drain 28% battery life left. It was just nuts to me. So charged the thing back up to full, slapped on some street wheels, and took it out that way. But I know that this thing is going to blow away all of your expectations. If you are a group ride person or someone that just doesn't want to charge, or have to bring a charger with you on a group ride, you will be able to hop on this board and it will have no issue whatsoever. I can't stress that enough. So let's talk about the remote. This is a pretty badass remote. I didn't know if I was gonna like this at first. My one gripe that I would say with this remote is that this nub right here, it's just a little too short, especially when I was wearing gloves in the wintertime. I just found myself to having just a little bit too short of a nub there. Nothing that was like, you know, damaging, but I wish it was a little bit more pronounced outwards. That's my only gripe with this remote. Otherwise, this thing is badass. Check this out. So, power this thing on. You got the Mboards logo as soon as you pop up there, and then you have this color screen. You can choose from 3 different color options, red, blue, and green, so you can customize this thing to what you want it there. Basically, you have your battery indicator on the bottom here. This is for your remote. The battery indicator, as soon as you turn the board on, let me go ahead and do that, and you'll see that that pops up right above it, and that gives you a battery indicator there as well. So cool. So it gives you a full readout of your miles ridden, the amp power that you're pulling out of there, your actual miles per hour speed in there, and then you have the different options of choosing low, medium, or high speed mode inside there. Now the customizable buttons inside of here, there's a ton of them. You have everything from pairing, control types, ESC functions, the battery cells that you have inside there, speed options, whether it's miles per hour or kilometers per hour. Then you're able to change the different type of wheel size and the motor pulley size, the teeth size, because you want to make sure that you have the accurate readout when it comes to miles per hour or whatever your speed is going on there. Your throttle sensitivity, and then the theme color, so you can choose from like green, red, blue. There's a whole different options inside there. So just a ton of different options inside there when it comes to the VX4. I think it's a great looking remote. You know, they actually did a really good job with it. But the cool thing about this whole board again is that if you don't like this remote, you can go with like a Hoyt Puck, you can go with the VX3, you can go with the Pro, you can go with any like the Flip Sky series stuff. So it depends on what you like and what you want to ride. That's all customizable, and that's kind of what the guys are talking about here when they built this board. Is that yes, it's a complete board, but it's a DIY board essentially. So anything down the line that if you wanted to upgrade or change out or swap out, put a different style battery inside there, change out the trucks, change out the Storm Core to like different ESC, all of those options are available, and you're able to do that with all of it inside this board. It's basically just a blank canvas that they put the best features inside of here. But if something isn't up to your standards at that point, you're able to go ahead and choose whatever you want and put inside of here as well too down the line. So really, they built a custom DIY board for you as a consumer, and I think they knocked it out of the park. I mean, I know that when I was like looking at the specs of this thing originally, it was hard to wrap my mind around a 12S 8P hitting 50 miles of range on 7-inch tires, but it can do that. And it really, really satisfies your range anxiety when it comes to anything along those lines that way. So when it comes to like group rides or long distance riding, or just going for like your everyday 10-mile ride, you don't have to worry about charging it up at the end of like 2 different rides. You're able to literally hit this thing and ride it probably for like a 2-week period, depending on how much you really ride, and you're able to just not worry about charging it. So who is this board for? I would say that if you're looking to get into the sport and you want to skip all of the other boards, this is one that I would jump into right away. I mean, looking at the price tag, there's other competitors on the market that have this, but this is the most powerful, the most longest range, one of the better looking boards that's available out there, and completely customizable to you as a consumer and what you want to do. With a DIY, you're able to basically open this thing up and say, okay, I don't necessarily like this remote, I'm gonna swap the remote out. Okay, I don't want to necessarily use these wheels, I can swap the wheels out. Hey, the trucks aren't what I want to swap the trucks out. All of those components are available to swap out. It's not dedicated being like, you need to use this is the software you need to use, you can't switch out your remotes. So it's like you can play around with this thing and be able to make it your own, which I think is fantastic. Everything that the guys have put together here, I think is a complete package. 100% would recommend and keep it as is, my personal preference, and I think it's definitely a great option in that sense. Let me tell you a quick story about who this is for. So my friend Devin and I, we actually went for a ride together. You can check out that video here. He picked up the Mboards Endurance without even telling me, which was kind of funny because he was asking me all these questions. Devin and I met our very first time that I went out to start filming. He was riding the Meepo Mini and I was riding the Meepo V3. We just happened to cross each other's paths, and we started like, hey, I'm filming something for YouTube. It was like one of my first ever videos I ever uploaded. And he was like, yeah, I'll come ride around with you. Fast forward almost a year later to the date. He now has a Mboards Endurance. I was riding the Hoyt UAV, and the two of us were kind of laughing at it, like, wow, we went from like these $300, cheap boards, kind of like your entry-level budget boards, to these like monstrosity of the things. And he's just laughing. you know, that whole time that we were like riding these things, it's just such an incredible experience. So someone that has been in the sport for a while and they wanted to upgrade, he jumped into one of these things because he said, you know, the part that it was made in America, assembled in America, that if anything ever went wrong, he knew he can reach out for customer service and talk to the guys over there and be able to get, you know, satisfied with that. I agree. I think that when you're looking at one of the boards here, being able to reach out to someone and get an answer within a very short round of time and not have to worry about dealing with time differences or anything like that, being able to get an answer right away, it's definitely something that I recommend, you know, when you're looking into these other boards. Their customer service is fantastic. Jacob was able to hop on the FaceTime with me right away and walk me through the opening of the board and kind of give me, like, point out everything that was inside of there and like gave me basically a guided tour. Power, range, carvability, stability, the looks. I think this board knocks it out of the park. 11 out of 10 in my personal opinion. When it comes to carbon fiber boards, this forged carbon fiber matte finish, I love it. I mean, you know, in my opinion, is there any cons to it? Maybe the remote. I said the remote with that little nub on there, which isn't even their design choice. You know, that's has something to do with the remote company. That was probably my only one little gripe, and that's because I was wearing double layer gloves in the middle of freezing 29-degree weather while I was riding. That's not any issue in that sense. I mean, could I swap it out for a Hoyt puck? Absolutely. Go in there, swap the receiver out, sync up a Hoyt puck, you feel more comfortable with. But that was probably my only gripe this entire time. Oh, my one gripe is probably actually this, is I was unable to drain the battery. That's a gripe, right? Is that a negative? Anyways, guys, I can't tell you enough that, you know, Mboards kind of like, when they first announced this board, the specs on the paper were not, you can't translate that into when you hop on this board. If you're coming to Eastgate Con, which I hope you are, you should go ahead and do a test ride demo on this thing on the track. You will be blown away with the power and the stability. It is one of my favorite boards to date right now. I think that when it comes to sleekness, power, the gorgeous, you know, look of it, I think I can't really praise it enough. I really do think they knocked it out of the park. And you know, in my opinion, it's a great board. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in here. I really appreciate you stopping by. If you haven't, go ahead and check out this video up here, or this video over here. Two of my different videos on this board. My first initial impression when I rode 11 miles right out of the gate on very busy roads, and I absolutely loved it. Which I also have this group ride test here as well too, and that was a lot of fun. If you guys haven't, make sure you go ahead and subscribe down below, give this video a thumbs up, and look forward to seeing you in the next one. Remember, always wear a helmet. Peace.